So we're back again with another athlete story, and today we are sitting down with Kenisha Liu. Kenisha, thank you very much for taking the time out, and I believe you're in California, right? And it's probably completely sunny and everything out there. So appreciate you getting in from the sun and coming and sitting and chatting with me. So let's start out just as we do with everyone else. Give us your background, where you're from, talk about the family, and give us I guess the spiel of who you are.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It's amazing being here. But yeah, no, I didn't always start out in California. I've moved around a lot. So I grew up in Northern California. Well, I was born there and then I moved to Washington State and then I moved to New Jersey and then I moved to California. So I've been around. And like that largely had to do with my dad. His job kind of, we had a lot of ups and downs, and like my parents are like working class immigrants. So getting his start in America was a little bit hard at the beginning. And so
Mm-hmm.
we had to move around as he switched jobs. And then when he really found his rhythm, um, that was really lucky for us, and we were able to stay in one place. And yeah, no, it was really, I think I'm just really lucky that throughout it all, my parents were like really they thought that there was a lot of value in putting me and my brother in sports. So we both have tried a bunch of different things. The whole reason I got into swimming was because my brother he did it first, and then my parents were like, "Oh, like this is this thing that like." They were thinking like you're not gonna get too injured in swimming,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not like impact. So they're like, oh, like Kendrick, that's my brother. He's pretty good at it. Like, let's give it a try with Kenesha. So that was kind of my beginnings with the sport. Um, and I honestly like I didn't like it at the beginning. I think I I was like really into the other sports that they had put me in, which was like dance and like ice skating. Like I don't really think I saw myself as like an athletic person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like my parents are pretty traditional, so I think at the start they kind of were just like they wanted us both to be kind of like a renaissance man or woman, just having a lot of skills, but I don't think they really foresaw me being able to be like this pretty elite athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it really we kind of just like rolled with the punches as it went on. And like flash forward like 20 years, like I had a pretty good career to look back on.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I mean, most parents, they always try and put their kids in similar situations as they had when they grew up. So seeing as they just kind of wanted you thrust into all sports to get your own experiences is really, really cool. Now, you said you played a lot of sports as a younger child. Now, as you grew up, did you start to get into just one sport? I mean, obviously, you ended up swimming as a college athlete, but did you
Mhm.
start to get into or at least love one sport more than the other as you got older?
Yeah, I think from the beginning I had an interest in gymnastics. I just thought that it was so fun. I thought the leotards were so pretty. Like, it I don't know. I just thought it was I thought that was gonna be my thing. And like as I got better and better, I kind of ran into some issues with like the coaching. I had like a pretty scary like Russian coach, and I think that was honestly the reason why I ended up not doing it, because I just felt like I had so much pressure in that sport from way too young of an age, in my opinion. So at a certain point, like I just like sent a text to my coach from my like little like slider phone at like 9 years old and was like, hey, like I'm not gonna be at practice anymore. Um, and so that got rid of gymnastics, and I just kept on swimming because I think for swimming, a lot of the the biggest reason I stayed in that sport was like my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's a big reason why, a lot of kids stay in their sports. And like, I didn't realize that I really liked swimming until I moved to California. Which is kind of funny because I had to get over this like big hump before I was able to like really sink into that sport. Like moving from New Jersey to California, the level of athleticism, at least in swimming, is a whole nother world. Like
Mm-hmm.
California swimming is like pretty fast.
How old
Um,
were you when you moved to California from New Jersey?
I was like about 11. And I was like really ready to move. I was like, this is gonna be so fun. Like I'm gonna make so many friends. Like it's gonna be like awesome. And then I was hit by like this, I don't know, like a ton of bricks, I guess, because I just wasn't expecting to be humbled at 11. Like I thought I was pretty good. I didn't have plans to swim in college. But I was just like, oh, like I'm pretty good. And then I came to California and I was like, I was like, all right. And that transition was really hard because I also got into I started swimming at Bray Aquatics, and I
Mhm.
had another coach that was just he was pretty rough. He was like ex-military, like the type of coach that would make you do push-ups if you were late. And I think at the start, like I was like, well, here we go again, like being pushed at this young of an age, like I don't know if I want to do this. Like I don't even know if I want to do this sport. And this guy is making me do because I would cry before I got to practice, and then it would make me late, and then I'd have to do push-ups. So I was just like, this, little 12, 11-year-old me was like, this is not worth it. But I think the difference there is like that coach, like he believed in me and
Mhm.
he like pushed, but it was like he pushed with a purpose. Whereas the other gymnastics coach, I felt like I didn't feel uplifted at all. Like he would get mad at me if I didn't lead the lane, like if I wasn't going hard enough in practice. And I think it really taught me like how to work hard, which was the biggest deal because I was the kid before that would get out once a month at practice because I had like a stomach bug or something. I just didn't
Okay.
feel like swimming. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this coach kind of changed my view of myself in the sport. He taught me to work hard, and like one day I like really got used to his training, and I realized like he was doing it for the right reason. And I
Mhm.
remember like a distinct moment of like riding in the car home with my mom from practice, and I was like, I think I do want to swim in college. And she was like, oh, like yay. So yeah, no, it was I think around like 13 was when I was like, okay, like swimming is my sport.
Mhm. Coaching is everything, certainly. And I mean, you literally have already shown at such a young age how coaching has such a huge impact on you mentally. It
Yeah.
kind of takes over whether you want to do a sport or not, right?
Yeah.
So as you get to that epiphany of, I actually want to do this,
Yeah.
what changes in you mentally that then transfer to the physical work?
Yeah. Yeah, like to your point, like coaching is everything. I think from a young age, it really shapes the way that you're gonna see, I guess, like the way you're gonna work.
Hmm.
And so for me, like getting to like I there was this report or by like these psychologists, they did a study and it was like they found that like parents who tell their kids that they're hard workers rather than just being smart is actually more beneficial in the long run because when you tie your identity to being a hard worker rather than being smart, like you will work to maintain that identity. And
Hmm.
so you will keep on working hard and keep on doing that thing. And so like I really really credit my coaches bringing me up as seeing myself as somebody who, you know, is a hard worker. I think that if I thought the other way, because I kind of like, as I was saying, like I kind of got humbled when I moved to California, like,
Yeah.
and like it's natural. Like as a kid, you kind of think you can do everything, and I was so guilty of thinking that I ruled the world. Um, so I think that has really made such a difference. And now, like transitioning from my sport into the real world with the job, it actually played a huge role in why I was able to even get a job in the first place. Like the so I work at a startup now, and like the
Hmm.
person who found me, my manager, like she was looking at athletes actually, because she knew that like student athletes know how to manage a big workload, they know how to work hard, they're pretty adaptable. And a lot of times they're great at collaborating and leadership because those are things that you need and things that you end up learning in your sport, which you don't even think about, which is great. And so like I ended up being able to like work in a startup world, which is not the easiest because everything
Hmm.
moves so fast. So yeah, no, I really credit like the early coaching that I had to being able to succeed later in life.
Hmm. Now, you said one of the reasons that you stuck with the sport was your brother, but also a lot of your friends.
Yeah.
And as you continue to work harder and the accolades start piling up, um, are your friends starting to notice how well you're doing? And are they, are you getting to go to these all-star meets and things like that with them, or are you kind of passing them by?
Yeah. I think that friends are also just really core. Like the people that you surround yourself with, those are what you become. And I
Hmm.
think one thing I actually struggled with was being able to pick and choose who I hung out with. So at the start, like I wasn't amazing by any means, but like I had natural talent. So like as I got faster and faster, that hard work paid off and I was able to, you know, work my way up to being one of like the fastest on the team. And I I really struggled with the people who were in my ear who was telling me like, "Oh, like you're it's not going to last so long. Like just wait until you get to this age or just wait until this and this or like or just saying like you're not that good." And then other people who were like supportive and like really were by my side not because I was like this person, this fast swimmer, just because they actually liked me. I think that's something that I didn't realize. Like there were a lot of people who were mean to me because they were jealous. There were people who were nice to me because I was fast, but then mean to me behind my back. And then there were people who genuinely cared. And that was really hard for me to distinguish when I was that young. And even like when I realized some people didn't have my best intentions, like I think I still had a hard time being able to cut them off because I just felt like I don't know, I was very passive. Like I didn't feel like I could. I didn't know how. Um and you'd be surprised like these people weren't all my age. Some people were older, some people were parents, like some people were other teams' coaches. So like I was really really lucky to have that talent and to be able to progress up. I think I was really lucky that I also didn't have like huge highs and then like have to like work around trying to maintain that high. Like I was able to have a steady incline into being good,
Hmm.
which I think is really helpful. But yeah, that's something that I really noticed the people around me. So to your point, like my friends, like I honestly had a lot of people come and go into my life at the start because I didn't really know how to manage that.
Yeah. Now, managing relationships as you're starting to ascend in a sport, like you said, you start to see a lot of people's true colors.
Yeah.
And it's hard to manage when you're trying to manage relationships, you're trying to manage being good at your sport, but then you also have school thrown in there.
Yeah.
How did you balance all these different aspects of your life at such a young age, as these things are changing and you're growing? How
Mhm.
did you balance school, friendships, sports, you name it, at such a young age with all the attention you were getting from winning, essentially?
To be honest, like I didn't balance it. And it's funny because I think if you like asked me in high school this question, I would have been like, yeah, like I'm doing great. Like I'm in this many AP classes and like I'm like doing awesome in swimming, like I have friends. But like the great thing about growing up is that hindsight and like I thought that I was doing awesome. I thought that I
Hmm.
had everything under control, but I just wasn't paying attention to myself. Like I was heavily like overworked and I didn't get very much sleep because I felt like I had to do all these things. Um like for the three aspects like school, swim and social, I think socially like I wasn't able to do a lot of things. That's just something that you have to give up.
Hmm.
Like you're just not allowed to, hang out after school because you got to get ready for practice. You can't like stay up at late at night because you have morning. But luckily, the friends part was taken care of because I had friends at swimming, so I got to
Hmm.
be around my peers. I didn't really miss out too much. But to school and swimming, like looking back, like I honestly would have cut back the amount of AP classes I took and like the amount of pressure I put on myself. I think a lot of times people are like, student athletes can do it all. Like, like you have to do it all. You're so amazing because you can do it all. But like, it's okay to not, you know, to not feel that way. It's okay to prioritize some things a little bit more. I'm not saying that you should like only go all in on one thing. Like you need both. But I think
Mm.
that like the amount of stress that I felt and the dangerous thing to me was that I didn't even realize it until college. And then by the time you realize it, a lot of times like something bad has to happen for you to realize it, which happened to me. And so yeah, no, I didn't balance it well. Like I took a lot of AP classes and I think it set me up for college, but I don't think looking back that it was as valuable as it seemed in at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, trying to balance life as you're growing up is
Yeah.
extremely hard. And
Mhm.
with you taking AP courses, that's definitely not something that we have in common. I was not the kid taking AP courses like you were. So I guess I can say that I probably balanced it a little bit better than you did because I had no academic pressure whatsoever when it came to that. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I wish I could relate a little bit more, but those aspects, how did they start to translate for you with all of that pressure as you were growing and getting all of these accolades and getting better? How did things start to balance out, or did they never balance out and you just kind of continued on until you realized that wasn't really good? I didn't do
Mhm.
very well with that.
Yeah. So my sophomore year, it really came to a head my sophomore year of college. So I was like entered into UCLA. Like I, as a freshman, I'd won like newcomer of the year. Like on paper, it looked like I was doing really well. Like I had a great season before that. My grades were pretty good. Like I was on like the director's honor roll, everything. Um, but I was so stressed and I I think that the people around me cared about me, but I think that they didn't know to check in on me because like I was always the person who's just like go go go, like that's all I ever did.
You always seem to
Um
have it together.
yeah, and I think a lot of athletes will seem that way because they're so used to being able to do all that, especially under pressure.
Hmm.
And so my second quarter, all I was just so honestly depressed and I like failed the majority of my classes. And it was such a huge moment and it felt like the end of the world at the time. Like I was like, I'm not going to be able to get a job. Like this is going to ruin everything. Also, like your grades are kind of public in a way because they release a list every quarter, and if you're not on it, they know that you didn't hit a certain GPA. So like that made me feel even worse because I was like, not even did I just fail all of these things. Like everybody knows that I didn't do great. So it was just like it felt like the worst moment. And I think like even in that aftermath, like I don't even think I realized like what was happening. Like my coach texted me and she was like, "Hey, like what happened?" And I was like, "Just a bad quarter." And that was that.
Hmm.
And my parents were like, "Yo, like are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm figuring it out." And it was it. Like I think I really needed more there and I didn't even know it. But from then on, I think I really just like tried to pull it together even more and it was a really slow process of figuring out like I was feeling this, and this because I was really stressed and I don't want to do all of my schoolwork because like I'm just having a hard time with everything in general. And that process took so long because I didn't think like, oh, like I should check in with somebody else. I should like ask, I should get help. Like it just
Hmm.
wasn't even a priority for me. I was like, I have too many things. And that was the problem. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, as a high school athlete,
Mhm.
do you think that not being able to handle things correctly at a young age was kind of the catalyst for everything coming to a head later on?
That is a really good question. Yeah, honestly, I think it goes back. to just like what you're exposed to as a kid. Um, I there was like another talk that I did with athletes to athletes with a parent who was there, and he was talking about like how he checks in with his kids. Like he has three different kids, and it's no pressure if they don't become an athlete.
Hmm.
He's very aware of like how dangerous sports culture can be sometimes, and that was like so refreshing to me. Like I was like I don't know if that's like the norm now or anything, but like to me, I really wish I had somebody in my life to be like, you can slow down, like you can take a break.
Yeah.
I think because I was so there's like good and bad to every side, and it's like nobody's fault in general. I think it's just the culture, but like because I had this idea of what an athlete had to be, like I felt like I couldn't miss practice. I felt like if I'm not like physically incapable of getting out of bed, like I'm fine.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it's really important for high schoolers to know that like you can be not okay. That's the first step, like being able to check in with yourself. I think honestly that's a skill of knowing when to start and stop. Um, and I think like it's key to identify the people around you who are actually there because they care about you.
Hmm.
Like that is everything. Like I said, like I think the people around you, that's who you become. Um, and so I think that's another point was like I had kind of surrounded myself with toxic people, so I didn't know how to speak up for myself. I felt like the only interesting thing about me was honestly was that I was an athlete because it seemed to be the only thing people talked about, or that's how it felt when I was young. Um, and so I think one great thing about college was learning that like my identity is not that like I'm a swimmer. Like I'm a person who swims. I'm not a swimmer. And that is something that I'm honestly still trying to like get out of. Like I'm still trying to be like, okay, like as I'm out of the sport, like I have so many other things that are important and other things that are valuable that I can bring to the people around me, to society. Um, and like one thing that like actually today, like I went to swim with my club team and I was like joking around with some of the kids and they're like in high school. So right now they're getting ready for CIF.
Hmm.
And they were like joking with me. They're like, "Hey, like, are you gonna swim this summer with us?" And I was like, no, like it's like expensive too. Like I have to pay. Like I'm gonna start a GoFundMe. Like I was kidding. And they're like, "Oh, like
Yeah.
we'll pay." Like these 16-year-olds, they were all like, "Oh, like we'll give you $50 each." And I was like, I'm not gonna take $50 from you guys. But
Yeah.
like it was just crazy to me that out even though like I'm slow now compared to what I was before, and they still care about me. I'm like, you guys realize like I'm not what I used to be, and they just don't care because they like me for who I am, and it
Hmm.
made me realize that like I had value beyond being fast. Like I actually helped my club team in other ways besides bringing attention to it, and that like kids are so honest, so that was like so heartwarming for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to see how the cultures have shifted, right? Things are a lot different now than
Yeah.
what they were, and obviously you and I are years apart in age. But I was talking to a kid the other day at the gym about when I was an athlete in high school, and I was just
Mhm.
like, man, we didn't have those things put in
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
You just kind of went out and you were an athlete, and that was it. No one was checking in with you. They were checking in with you, as a wrestler. They're checking in with you to make sure that your weight is okay and, and that you're feeling okay. But you're going to have days where you don't feel 100%, but you still have to go compete. You still have to go to school. You still have to go
Mhm.
to practice, right? And a lot of people aren't checking in on you. And, a lot of those things don't happen. And, I think even from a recruiting lens, and that's the next thing I want to get to with you is
Yeah.
now these coaches, when they're recruiting you, they have a lot more things to think about where they're
Mhm.
trying to check the boxes of, okay, well, we know what her numbers are, we know what her grades are, but
Mhm.
who is she as a person, who is she mentally, and they're checking in to see like who you truly are outside of just being the athlete.
Yeah.
And so my question for you is like, when did you start getting recruited? Because honestly, I know that it's a little bit different
Yeah.
depending on the sport.
Yeah.
And when you started to get recruited, how did you handle this new added pressure?
Yeah, I recruiting was crazy. I think so for swimming, You get recruited around like your sophomore, junior year of high school. I think they can start talking to you now earlier, but for me, it was mostly like my sophomore year. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like summer sophomore year and then junior year, I was like really, really in contact with a bunch of coaches. And it was honestly exhilarating at the start. Um, Good and bad because I think this only ended up further tying my mindset to like I'm valuable because I can swim fast because people were reaching out to me and they were like fighting with other coaches kind of, like they were like who are you talking to? Like, oh, like well, we're better because we have this and this and this. Um I
Which
didn't
is the
realize
wrong way to go about recruiting a kid, by the way. That's like the worst
yeah.
thing ever. Like it's a huge red flag when a coach says this is why we're better than them, or they are horrible instead of just trying to
Yeah,
sell
yeah.
themselves.
That's
So I
most
had to put that
trash.
caveat in there. It's so bad to recruit kids that way.
I know, right? That's such a good point. And like so like the good part I'll start with is just like you feel so amazing because you're literally so young and you're like getting hit with like serotonin because everybody's telling you how amazing you are
Yeah.
and they're like you're when you get here I had people literally telling me like when you get here like you're gonna be able to like meet this person because they visit our school. I'm gonna make you an Olympian. Like we have these state of the art facilities you can use anytime. And none of those things were things that they could completely promise, but they were just telling me those things because they wanted me, and
Mm-hmm.
it felt amazing. And like I was able to have some control, and I could like pick and choose who I wanted to talk to, and really decide like what was important to me, like what I valued in schools. It was a big decision, but I felt like in control, and I felt like I was on top of the world, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
The bad part was like I think I don't know if it's any better, but when I was getting recruited like only a couple years ago, honestly, like yeah, like they're gonna tell you some coaches and some people who are just on their team are just gonna tell you whatever they can to get you there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that like is really hard to be able to distinguish. Like how do you know if this coach actually has your best interest at heart? And like I actually had like because eventually you're gonna have to say no to some colleges. Like I actually had like an assistant coach be like, "Why are you calling me to tell me that you don't want to go to this school? Like you're not that great. Like we don't really want you. Like it's fine." Like they were just like rude, and I was like, the other day you were literally telling me how amazing I'm gonna be at your school. Like,
Yeah.
so I think that that is when having coaches and parents like support you to kind of ground you as a kid and be like, okay, like remember like all of these shiny things aside, like the things that are really important are your team. Are you gonna feel like you fit in? The culture, like does that align with how you view your sports? Some schools like they are not as gung ho about sports, but that might be a better fit for you. Other schools are really intense about sports to the point where they don't let you go home for school. I mean, for
Mm.
summer, and that could be a deal breaker. Um, and like aligning with the team that you're or sorry aligning with the like coaches and the support like the PTs, the like athletic directors, like all of those people. I think that those are the things that minus all of the fancy equipment that all of these schools are going to have because they have millions of dollars, like
Mm-hmm.
those three things I think are really important. And I think something that I didn't do, which I would recommend to like anybody who's recruiting, is like you should talk to the team. I think the team is going to be like, well, first off, you're going to see if you gel well with them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's everything. And second of all, like, I wouldn't be afraid to like ask them like some hard hitting questions, like, because something to remember is like, and something I realized when I was helping recruiting is like, it honestly kind of is a show. Like, I mean, I think it depends at every school, but like, you're putting your best foot forward. Everybody is told to like, present their best self, like present the best things at the school. And so like don't be afraid to ask questions like so like what is your schedule really like? Like some schools
Yeah.
when I went to visit them, they'd be doing like relays and games when I was at practice and I was like like
Yeah, This doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I was like, how are you doing this every day, but you're swimming fast? So yeah, like ask them stuff like, what is your coach like? How does your coach make you feel if you don't swim well? That's really
Yeah.
important. Do you have a support system, um, both for mental health, I would ask, or like for academic resources? Like I think those things are really important, and that might be something that the parents need to kind of keep on top of their kids, because I think a big thing for kids is like I really want kids to have fun when they're on
Yeah.
recruit troops, because that's the most important thing, is to keep the sport fun. Um, Kind of went off topic, but very
No,
passionate
you're great.
about protecting these like new, the new wave of athletes. So
Yeah, I mean that's truly what it's all about. When it comes to recruiting, everyone gets tied up in, oh wow, the school has this state of the art stadium, or
yeah,
it's got brand new iPads attached to the weight racks, or you know what I mean,
yeah,
like all this new technology. Oh, this is all the cool gear that we get, right? And
yeah,
everyone gets tied up in those things, and they forget that even though you have all of these resources at your disposal, the ones that you're truly going to need are those coaches, are those teammates, the mental health coaches that you have, that schools are now setting up for, right?
hmm,
They didn't always have those, right?
no,
So now they're really starting to push these things, and showcase that we offer help mentally now for you.
mhm.
So I think it's a really important point of something that you experienced as you were going through the recruiting process of, you know what, this is something that I overlooked, and I probably should have looked into this. Now, as they're calling you though, and like you said, you love it. Everyone loves it. When you're getting recruited, it doesn't matter if it's D1, D2, D3. You love getting the phone calls, the emails, the text messages, the letters, all the different things they throw at you. But
Mhm.
how many of these coaches were calling you? How many did you have to talk to on a daily basis, that because they just kept calling? Was it a lot? Was it a little? And did you start to, like, kind of narrow your list down as things went on?
Yeah, so every school is different, and also, like, honestly, it's gonna depend on how much they want you.
Yeah.
So, like, some schools that I'd never replied to, I was getting letters every week. Other schools, like, also another point is, like, if there's a school that you like, don't be afraid to email them, because, like, they might not, there's so many sorry, athletes. So
Yeah.
I think that's something to remember. But yeah, like for me, I definitely had a couple calls like every week in the summer. And I think that it was, for me, like it was a little bit of a red flag if the head coach wasn't eager to meet me. Cuz I think that's kind of telling that they're just like, oh, like let the assistant do it. So that was kind of something that, like, if that was one of the things that I, in my head, I was like, oh, like make a mental note of that. That's kind of not something that I would, I don't know. I just didn't think it was great.
Mm.
Um, and I eventually was able to narrow my schools down to Duke, UCLA, of course, Stanford, Arizona, University of Arizona. And I was looking at Harvard for a little bit. I think that at the start it was a little bit rough for me because I didn't exactly have, I had like an idea of what I wanted, which was a good school that was
Yeah.
like good at both academics and swimming. But honestly, I think I was a little bit too worried on what it would look like on paper, and like how, what the publications would say about it, because like I was saying, like everything is public when you're an athlete. And a lot of people were just talking about me because of swimming, so I was like, okay, like what school would look the best? And that
Mm.
kind of narrowed down a lot for me. And it was also part of the reason why I was looking at schools like Harvard. Like I didn't really want to go out of state for me personally. And Ivy Leagues are a little bit of a different story, where like they don't have money to give, like they're not as sports centric. But in my head I was like, oh, Harvard's gonna look great on on the headline.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that was something at the start that eventually I did narrow them out, because I was like, okay, like I actually don't really want to go out of state. I don't want to go to a school that doesn't focus on sport as well.
Hmm.
Um, and I think you can only go on 5 recruit trips. My coach
Okay.
only wanted me to go on 3 because he didn't want me to miss practice. So the schools I ended up choosing were UCLA, Arizona, and Duke. And honestly, like amazing choices. I had fun at all of those schools, and like the coaches were great. Um,
Hmm.
but I think for me, UCLA really checked the box where I was like, well, this is an amazing school to go to. My brother, it was his dream school. So in my mind, I was like, ha, like I did it, you did it. Um, and also like I felt like it was in my comfort zone where I was not too far from home, but like my parents couldn't drive out to me at any
Hmm.
convenience. So I was like, okay, that's good. Um, and I felt like I felt at home there. Um, but honestly, looking back, I think I would have done a couple things different. I think I would have broadened my scope in some areas and made it a lot smaller in others because honestly, the biggest thing for me was how it would look, and that's just not important.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the one of the things that you noted before was the culture,
Hmm.
and you know, we've had a lot of different athletes that have talked about the culture of the team and the school and
Hmm.
everything else. Once you finally pick UCLA and you get there, what's the culture like, and how much different is it, or how much was it? Were you able to predict once you got there?
Yeah, I think the thing that I really loved about swimming at UCLA was like how much we cared about how other people did. As bad as that might sound initially, let me explain myself. Like swimming's a pretty individual sport,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that honestly some of the culture, like especially when you're being selected for like championship meets or for like exclusive uh selection camps, like you kind of end up seeing everybody, even your friends, as like competition. So I think that it was so refreshing for me to finally really truly want everybody on my team to do amazing. Like yeah, like we were still competing to get our hand on the wall first, but like they really nailed into my head like the idea of the team ranking and like the team doing well, and I honestly did a lot better um than I would expect because I was swimming for a bigger reason than myself. And I think that's one great thing about college athletics is like that extra reason is enough to push you through a lot more than you would have thought. So
Mm-hmm.
that I honestly didn't expect it, and that is one of the best things. And the thing that I miss most about college swimming is honestly like the dual meets, the ones that don't even matter as much because they're not the ones that will rank you at the end of the season. Like I would look forward to those meets, and I'd be the crazy teammate on the side, like screaming my heart out. And I would get such exhilaration if I like my favorite thing is if somebody like would boo us. I would get so like hyped. I would like scream back. I felt like any heckling to anybody on the team was like personal. Like they're all of our enemies now. And
Yeah.
so that like it was the best feeling. And it's like funny because like honestly like sometimes that would happen at meets that weren't that big of a deal. Um, but yeah, I think that the culture at every school is going to be really different.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, I think that the team aspect overall will be at basically every school, but um for me, I think I just didn't expect how that would make me feel and how awesome that would be. Um yeah, I don't know. It's so different. And I think like with swimming specifically, it's like so different because it's individualistic. I like that we focused more on that. And they were also UCLA was the my coach was the one who told me like you're not a swimmer, you're a person who swims. Something that I didn't understand when I first heard it, but like they focused a lot on that and that was really
Mm-hmm.
great.
Yeah. Now that's out of being an athlete. Have had an interview with Anna Glenn, who also went
Mhm.
to UCLA,
Yeah.
and she talked about the on-campus culture, about what it was like getting to campus and seeing people that looked like her, and not realizing how important that was to her. It wasn't something that was on her list.
Mm.
As somebody that also went to UCLA, is that something that you experienced when you got there?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think like I yeah, I was pretty used to being around a pretty diverse set of people.
Hmm.
I think she's like from North Carolina, right? So I think that
Yep.
might be a little bit different. California is pretty diverse. I didn't really like I feel like at the elite level was when I would kind of struggle because it was less diverse and I would feel a little out of place, especially at like big like meets, like really big, like international, national level, or like national select camps, things like that. I would feel a little bit out of place when everybody around me was white.
Hmm.
um, and so it was really refreshing to even go all the way up to NCAAs and have all types of people around me. I think UCLA does a great job of like having that culture of inclusivity, and like their athletic department is really open to a lot of ideas. Like you can start like clubs at school as an athlete, and so like I started joining a club that was labeled Sam's Club, which I think is kind of confusing, but it was like student athletes mental health club, and that was also I'm pretty sure started by an athlete because they saw a need for it, and just really great to see that we could get involved in the community. Um, and they gave us like I think that's where some of that leadership and learning to collaborate comes from, and being able to ideate with other athletes was awesome. So yeah, no, like Anna's completely on point. Like the diversity on the campus was was something that felt really really comforting, um and just like the ability to like to lead and do your own thing and how inviting everybody was. I think that was really really comforting.
Hmm. So let's dig into the career accolades a little bit now. You've been to international meets. You've done a lot of winning. Let's talk about that. Where have you swam? Where was the first big international meet? How old were you? How did it feel to be there? Obviously, you were. You get selected to make these teams and everything else. Like, what was that experience like?
Oh my gosh, this is the question that I was dreading because I feel so awkward talking about my like accolades. But yeah, no, from like it was really really exciting for me when I hit around 16. That was when I started to get really noticed, and also around the time, perfect timing, because that's when I started to get recruited. And so as I was doing better, like it only made them feel even more confident in their decision to like look at me. Um, like and I started to progress. So my first big win in my head was like winning sectionals, which is a like a local meet. It's like a championships of the teams that are in that area,
Hmm.
and it was so exciting to me because I never even thought that I would be able to win that meet. And then like I think only a year later I got chosen to go to World Junior Championships. It was in Singapore, which I'd never been to, and like they chose the fastest 18 and unders at nationals. And then the people who were selected got to represent USA. Like we had the cap, um, and like the meet, it was honestly crazy. Like there were two quotes that I really remember at that meet. One quote was our coach saying like the world is fast. And it's simple, but it's like he wasn't kidding. Like literally the world record got broken at that meet. And the second quote that he said was look around you because some of these people are going to be Olympians. And I was like, okay, like sure. Like we all want to be Olympians. And he was right. Like literally last summer I was like, "Hey, like I know you." And So swimming on that world stage was like the coolest thing. Like I was excited for everything. Like I was excited they would like check the authenticity of my suit because if you wear like a suit that's illegal and it might make you faster, then you get disqualified. And I was like so excited that they would check me. Um and I think it also like it made me feel really good because I was able to do well under pressure. I got selected for the 100 free, and so I was supposed to be on a relay on I think like the sixth day, and they literally the night before on like the third day, he was like, "Oh, like I need you to swim this other relay, and it's in like 10 hours, so good night, get a good night's sleep." And I think I was gonna throw up. Like I thought I was gonna throw up. Um, but no, I like my roommate was like the best. She was like, "You got this. Like, don't even worry about it." And it was a mixed relay, which isn't something that happens in the Olympics, but it was really really fun. And stepping onto that stage is like completely different. Like the seats are filled. There's like cameras in your face, and they follow you as you walk out. They let you like you're suited up and you get to wear like all of this brand new USA like clothing and like you have the official caps on and everybody's watching and when I finished the race like people from other countries like fans from like Singaporean fans they were like, "Oh, like can you like sign my shirt?" I was like, "You want me to devalue your shirt with my signature?" Like it was so crazy and we did really well. We were able to like advance to finals and um like I was able to swim more at that meet and like it was amazing. Sorry. I was just getting caught up in the moment. But yeah, no, that was the start for me and then from then on like I got chosen for national junior camp and that's like the fastest top there's the top two 18 and unders in the country. Um I in college I swam an amazing race in 2019 that put me on world rankings. I was like 75th in the nation or in the world, which is crazy to me because like I don't think I'll ever be that good at anything ever again. Um and yeah, no, that race was really amazing. I've won junior nationals. I was like seated like 15th at nationals. Like I've been lucky to have a really great fulfilling career.
Hmm. It's pretty cool. And the last time we spoke, you talked about swimming against Olympians
Yeah.
and how that kind of made you feel. Talk about that a little bit. What what's it like mentally swimming against? I think you said it was Katie Ledecky that you were swimming against. What's it like mentally swimming against someone that has that persona and has that kind of um, impact just with being in the room or like being in the lane next to them?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that the most amazing thing watching these people swim is like the confidence. Like I feel like even if you just like got onto the pool deck and didn't know anybody, you would be able to pinpoint who like the Olympians are just by the way they walk on deck. She had like a presence about her, like she totally knew what she was doing. And I completely fumbled when I raced her because I honestly let it get into my head. We like it was the 200 freestyle, which is one of my best events. I mean, one of her best events as well. And I was like right next to her. And I have a race plan, but I was like, you know what? Like I need to do something different because this is like a special occasion almost. Like I need to, try to like hang back and then try to get faster as I keep on going through that 200, which is not the complete opposite of my race strategy. And like the first 25, she was so far ahead of me. Like she could have gotten out. Like I wouldn't have known because she was that far ahead of me. My coach, like when I got out, she was like, "What are you doing? Like, why did you swim it like that?" And I remember thinking that I knew so clearly before that race what I was doing. I was like, I know that like I can do this if I just do this. But honestly, it was just like the nerves.
Yeah.
I was just trying to convince myself that this was a better strategy because I let her get in my head. And she didn't even do anything. Like She was like completely, totally sweet, super nice. And so like I think that that was the first lesson for me. Like I let the persona get in my head and um like the person, like every race that you swim, something that I learned just being on getting to swim on international stages and on really big meets is like every single swim that you do, it's the same thing. Like you've done the race a million times before. It's why should it be any different just because you're at this meet, you're swimming against this person. Like you know what you're doing, like you've trained this way for a reason.
Hmm.
And so that was really humbling. And from then on, I think I was able to like ground myself before racing and like also sometimes like if you don't even sometimes I won't even look at the heat sheet because I don't want to see who I'm racing because I know that it might get into my head because at these like national meets like not even are is it just one Olympian like your whole the whole like race is Olympians like next to you. So I think like just being able to realize like I shouldn't change my strategy and also realizing like I'm here for a reason, like I belong with them. I worked my way to be at this competition. And so that kind of it stopped me from limiting myself to being like, well, they're at this tier and so like they have to beat me. Like we were all at the same meet. So we were all in the same level. And so I really needed to grind that into my head so I'd be like, okay, like I deserve to be here. Like this Olympian's just another person.
Yeah. And with all of that, and we touched on it before, where the job you have now and your manager was literally looking for athletes because of how you handle all of these things. And I think it's been, you know, littered throughout this entire interview as you've been talking of being able to handle things differently. I think you've really touched on it throughout, but as as an adult now and you're no longer competing, do you feel like all of these experiences have really shaped and molded you into the capable employee that your manager was looking for?
Yeah, 100%. And like that's something that when I got to UCLA, they used to tell us too. They used to be like, "Oh, well like employers love student athletes." And like I honestly thought it was BS. I was like, "Yeah, right. Like why would they care what I do in the pool?" But like no, it's definitely true. And like something like as an adult is like I honestly am working through a lot of the things that I put off as an athlete. Um a lot of like just like the stress the unlearning a lot of things from sports culture that was taught to me, and so that's kind of a really interesting experience, but I know now how to handle those things, and like I know I can be a lot better in like in finding that balance and checking in, and the problems that I had when I was like young like still are some things that I deal with today, but like it sports really set me off up well for entering um the adult the adult world, I guess, if you'd say. Like I don't have that hard of a time like managing a bunch of projects. um I feel like I'm really good at, getting my head down and focusing and entering that zone and doing my work. I feel like I'm great at collaborating. Like I really have sports to credit for that. And like my manager was telling me like, yeah, like I think that it's really impressive that you're able to like remember to do all these things and manage all these tasks. And it's earned me their trust. And like I'm literally only a year into working or a little bit over a year into working, and like I feel like the reason I have their trust is because of those skills that I learned, and it makes me really grateful.
Yeah. Um, One of the hardest things for athletes is when they're not athletes anymore. I think we all will always identify as athletes.
Yeah.
I don't, it doesn't matter. When I'm 9 million years old, I'm always going to say that I'm an athlete
Yeah.
because of the things that I've done in sports.
Yeah.
But you're not competing anymore. How did you handle that aspect of your life being gone?
I'm still managing it, honestly. And I think it's really therapeutic to be able to talk about my experiences, and to even have like this community of like post athletes. Like I just joined a group on LinkedIn, which is such a funny sentence to me that there's like a network on LinkedIn. But it really is something that I've been struggling with. It's hard because I think when I was growing up, like I didn't have people tell me that I was anything more than an athlete.
Hmm.
Not because they meant to, but I think it's just like they were so focused on my career as a swimmer.
It was
And
something that
so,
they could tangibly see you doing.
right. And so, like, honestly, like some people, and these people aren't people that I'm super close to, but like they'll ask me what I'm doing after, uh, now that I'm done. And like, I sense that they like feel like they're bracing themselves to hear me say, like, oh, like I'm really struggling. Like, they'd be like, oh, so like, do you have a job now? And I'm like, yes, I have a job and I like it. So like I think that was something I was really worried about was that judgment. And I honestly do get it a little bit where people I think are like, "Oh, like do you even have anything that you're doing right now?" And it's like funny to me because like now I play other sports. Like I've gotten into tennis and volleyball and I'm so not used to being like to learning this new skill. And
Yeah.
so like I get really frustrated. And also like I'm great in water I've learned, but on land like I'm not in my element.
You're kind of like a fish out of water, apparently.
Yes, exactly. So like I'm like it's really helped me to be able to do this other sport and it's reinvigorated like the way I feel about swimming. Like I love the competition. I love like getting to be around like a new team and like it's really fun getting to be better at a sport. So I think that's really helped. But yeah, no, like it's just very different. And I think that you like you said, you always will see yourself as an athlete. I think it's important to know while you're an athlete that you have other things and there's other things out there. And like you hear a lot of Olympians say or post like ex-Olympians say that they get really depressed post
Mhm.
Olympics because they feel like that's like the height of their life. Um that's honestly something that I've been struggling with too. Like the thing about being top 75 in the world, like sometimes at night in the shower, I'll be like, what else? I'm never gonna be top 75 in the world at anything else. But like I don't have to be. And I think that the moment where with the kids from my club team where they were so excited for even the thought of me just like getting to go to the meet, even if I didn't swim, like that reminded me that like I don't have to be like as amazing as I was at this one thing because the other things that I have truly do have an impact. And so that's kind of something that I remind myself when on those days where I'm like, man, I really wish I was still swimming.
Yeah. So now that you're, not competing and you're more passionate about a lot of these things and you're realizing your impact, um, what's a piece of advice? And I think this entire interview has been pieces of advice, honestly. But what's something that um, you carry with you that you've been told or something that you've learned through your experiences that you think the next generation should know?
Man, there is so many things that I could say. And I think it's funny because when people ask me this question, I like try to like I like word vomit because I'm so passionate about like trying to help the new generation avoid some of the things that I struggle with now. But I honestly think the biggest thing for me is the identity piece. Um, like, and it's not something that you'll build on your own, but I think having an idea of who you are beyond your sport, post sport, will help you go really far. I think even in the sport, when you have a bad swim, like sometimes like you might think that that is who you are, but it's not. That one swim does not make you does not define you as a swimmer or as a person. So I think that is key, just knowing who you are and trusting your gut. Trusting your gut with the school that you go to, with the people that you're around. Um, and it'll take you a long way.
That's great. Like I said, this entire interview was one big advice column. I think you
I know.
gave
I'm
so
sorry.
many. It's awesome though. It's so great. Like there's just so many different tidbits of things that you've said that either I resonated with or something that I never even encountered that made me think. And So that's great. I really do appreciate you taking the time to sit and give all these different nuggets of wisdom, fight through the unhumbleness of talking about yourself, because I know how much you love doing that, and spitting out some accolades and talking about your resume. So I really appreciate it. It was great. I'm gonna let you go enjoy the California sun, but do you have anything else before we end?
No, I just want to say that like athletes to athletes is amazing. Like I love the mission. It's something that I think a lot of student athletes will really benefit from.